Hi, Dadima and crew. I just want to help you out with your section as Dadima requested. Hopefully this slide and our quick discussion here will be of significant help for you in preparing your learning slides. So there's a few things to keep in mind as you go through sections 2.6 and 2.7. First of all, you will always want to keep in mind, especially with this book and whenever you're dealing with philosophy, you want to keep in mind that the previous learning you're always building on. So your current learning is building on top of your previous learning. Think about it like a house. First, you build the foundation of the house, and the foundation is really key. If the foundation's not there, the house won't last but a few days before it collapses. So we build the foundation, and the foundation goes all the way back to chapter 1 even. And with for the foundation of this section, we're really not going too far back. We do want to keep in mind terms and concepts that we learned months and months ago, like infinite and eternal. Of course, we want to keep those in mind, which I'm sure you have down, no problem. But we also want to keep in mind just the previous learning in this chapter. So first of all, we want to consider when Gangadin talks about creation. So in our book, we have argued or reasoned that there is a God. Now, if there is instead of using the word God, we can even just say creator. There is a creator. It is that which is eternal and has brought into existence all that is not eternal, correct? So if there is a creator, and we're assuming from our reasoning that there is, then the creation, is necessarily or by necessity revelation. So say that with me. Creation is revelation. And that makes sense. Think about it. That which the creator has created reveals the creator. Now, this flies in the face of so many Christians who believe the best way to know God is through some type of beatific vision. That is the classical medieval name for it. The beatific vision is this idea that you will really only know God in some sort of full sense, or as full as you can know God, when you die and you are presented to him, and there you have this more full vision of him as he is before you. Although you can argue for something like that in scripture, what Gangadin is reminding the theistic community here is what Gangadin's reminding the theistic community, and of course this theistic community includes Christians, is that the primary way we know God is actually through his creation, because creation is by necessity revelation. And so when we take dominion, as the word is used in this book, and it's a biblical concept, when we take dominion of the earth, we get to know God. Think about it in the most simplest terms, or the simplest analogy. I always love to remind people that the physical sciences, Miss Zelinsky's classes and Mr. Cochran's classes, the physical sciences, chemistry, biology, the physics, of course, and environmental science. Oh man, I love environmental science. These are the subjects that actually have the potential to reveal the most about God. Think about it. If you're out in the environment and you're, let's say, dealing with photosynthesis, and you're learning about how plants reproduce and how plants eat and get energy and give off energy, and you're going through this whole process in environmental science, I mean, you are learning about God. You're learning about how God, brought things into existence, or how God cause things to be. You're learning that God is a creative force that brings light and energy. And I mean, we just don't think of it this way though, because we're so secularized, especially in the sciences, right? Think about it. Think how tricky the enemy is. He's taken the classes or the subjects or the disciplines, whatever you want to call them. He's taken these disciplines that should actually be revealing the most about God, and he's caused them to bring the most skepticism about God. Because what happens is people go out and study the earth, or they invent medicines based on, plants and chemicals that they've created. And what they do is they say, look what I've done. I've gone out into the creation and I've taken these things and I've put them together and I've figured out how they work. And I have, I've created all this. I've done all this. I've figured out how all this works. And what happens is it points to themselves, and pride begins to take over. And people say, hey, we don't need God. God's no explanation of this stuff. We figured it all out. We don't need to say any longer, like the Egyptians, that the god of the Nile is causing it to rain. No, we know how it rains. We understand condensation and whatever. I haven't studied that in a long time, so forgive me, but we understand how it rains. We don't need God as an explanation anymore. And so they throw God out. But little do they realize, and I hope you do today, little do they realize that when they learned, or when science learned how rain works, how the whole process of condensation or evaporation and then condensation and all of that, when they've discovered how that works, they've learned about God, the creator. They've learned about the creator. They don't need to toss the creator as an explanation out. They've learned something about the creator. And so keep that in mind as you go through this chapter. Creation is revelation. Now, that is only if you've reasoned that there is a creator. So for an atheist secularist, of course, when they discover something in science, they say, hey, we don't need God as an explanation anymore. No longer do we need what's called the God of the gaps fallacy, if you've ever heard of that. No longer do we need to just say, oh, God causes it. Now we know how it works, so we can toss God out. But when you've used your reasoning to conclude that there must be a creator, then you immediately realize that his creation, or its creation must be revelation. It must be revealing something about the creator himself. Does that make sense? So that is dominion. Dominion equals the work of mankind to rule over creation in such a way as to develop and understand it, and thus to come to know its creator. Isn't that mind-blowing? The best way that we humans can know God is to go and work. Isn't that cool? That's what this chapter is saying. The best way that we can know God is to get out there and work. And what are we working towards? We're working towards dominion. We want to just absolutely figure out everything we can figure out about this creation. Everything we can figure out. And as we figure out everything we can possibly figure out about this creation, we are actually getting to know its creator. We're getting to know the creation's creator. Does that make sense? That's why I love to remind students that the physical sciences are some of the best subjects to get to know God. Do you realize that when scientists make huge discoveries in science, it should actually cause them to fall to their knees in worship of the Creator? They should say, my God, how you have done wondrous things beyond anything we could ever have done. Your creative energy and power and creativity is beyond what we ever could accomplish. This is mind-blowing that we're able to figure out how to split an atom. Notice the picture there in the slide, right? It's mind-blowing that we can figure out how atoms work and even how to split them. It's crazy. I mean, this shows us you, God. This shows us how you work and what you're about and all of that. So creation reveals its creator, and we are to get off our butts and we're to go and work to continue to reveal the knowledge of God. Isn't that cool? That means any job that we do, any work that we do, and it doesn't just have to be the physical sciences, although those are so directly related, obviously, but it can be anything we do. Anything we do can be dominion. We can be working to rule over creation in such a way as to develop it and understand it the best we can, whatever our field of work is, therefore coming to know the creator, its creator. Okay, enough of that. Anyways, you really need to understand these concepts before moving on to your section. I hope that makes sense. Okay, now let's get to your section. Your section says, we should work for the good with true hope. Well, you should be asking this, or all of us should be asking this. Why? Why should we work for the good with true hope? That's Moral Law 4. Now, I understand your section comes before Moral Law 4, but you need to work on your slides as though you already have read through the whole chapter, understand the whole chapter, and you understand Moral Law 4. So Moral Law 4 is we should work for the good with true hope. Well, somebody, if not us, might say, why? Why should we work for the good with true hope? After all, what gives us any real hope that someday the whole creation will come to know the knowledge of God, that every human will come to know the knowledge of God? Now, that is complete dominion. By the way, let's just jump ahead to chapter section 2.7, which is also yours, right? That's where 2.7 comes in. What 2.7 is essentially saying is that when dominion is complete, when every human being comes to the good, which is the knowledge of God, when every human being comes to the good, dominion will be complete. Chop Howie, done. Dominion will be done. And when dominion is done, when every human comes to the good and has the good and knows they have the good, which is the knowledge of God, then rest. No more work is required. After all, full dominion has taken place. Now, we look at the world around us and we think, oh crap, that looks like a long way off. And it likely is a long way off. Because obviously there are many who do not have the good, the knowledge of God. And so we rightly can ask, how can we really have any hope that complete dominion will ever take place? That is what your section 2.6 is all about. How can we be certain that the good will be achieved, especially in light of all the horrifying things that are going on around us and all the people who do not have the knowledge of God? How can we be certain that the good will be achieved? And here's how Gang Edin explains it. Of course, he explains it using reason. So look at the triangle chart here, my little pyramid chart. Notice that you've got your A, B, C, D, and E in here. So Gang Edin says this: here's how we can be certain that the good will be achieved. First, it's required by our very nature. Our nature is created by God. And remember, we already reasoned for this. Your inner skeptic might still be saying, well, I'm not sure we're created by God. Okay, fine. But keep in mind, we've reasoned for it in the book. And so we're supposed to be at a place right now where we're saying, okay, I cannot deny that we're created by a creator. I've reasoned for it. It's the most reasonable and logical conclusion. Every other conclusion has failed and has lacked reason, therefore being actually nonsense, right? So I've come to the conclusion that yes, there is a creator, which means creation must reveal this creator, which means God is the creator of human nature. Remember moral law 1? And therefore is the determiner of good and evil, right? Moral law 1. So our nature, being created by God, requires the good. And he explains that a little bit in section A there. So read over that again in section A. And then he goes on and says, and let's keep building on top of that foundation. So here's how we can be certain that the good will someday be accomplished. Our nature as humans created by God requires it. But let's keep building on top of that. Not only that, but the nature of the good requires dominion. It's the only way we get to the good, is what Gangadine's saying. The only way we get to the knowledge of God is by continuing to take dominion of this earth, getting to know this planet, bringing out all of its powers and its creative genius. That is how we get to know the Creator. Then he builds on top of that and says, the nature of God as infinitely good requires that good overcome evil. Now, again, your inner skeptic may still be saying, well, wait a minute. I'm not sure God's infinitely good, but don't forget, we've reasoned for that in the book already. So Gangadine assumes that at this point, using reason, you've come to the conclusion that yes, God is infinitely good. After all, we've already reasoned that God must be infinite in all of his qualities. And one of his qualities must be goodness, because evil is simply a lack of goodness. It is not something in and of itself. Remember that? Evil is a deprivation of the good. It is not something in itself. Remember, if I ask you to hand me a moth hole in a shirt, you have to hand me the shirt. Remember? Because the hole is just the hole. It exists as the evil, but only in the good. So good is something. Evil is not something. It is a lack of something. Keep that in mind. So one of the qualities of God must be goodness. And if it's goodness, he must possess goodness infinitely, because the infinite must be infinite in all of his qualities, right? So this goes all the way back. This goes all the way back to chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So the nature of God as infinitely good requires that good overcome evil. That's a huge one, to give us this certainty that dominion will be achieved. Now move on to the next one. Think about the past. Here, there has been massive progress. So Gangadine says, hey, we've seen massive progress in dominion. If you think about the last 3,000 years, there has been massive progress in dominion. So many thousands upon, millions. So many millions upon millions of people have come to know God. They have come to the good. The good has been achieved in their lives. And so there has been massive progress. But then Gangadine reminds us in E there, he says, but if you think about the present, it's obvious that there are still many challenges. But these challenges are not a reason to despair, he says, right? Read that section again. He says, we just need to have clarity. We need to teach people the very things we're learning right now in this class and in this book. We need to teach people to analyze their presuppositions so that they can see what is clear about God and man and good and evil. And they can come to the good. And dominion someday can be complete. All right. Now, this does get a little bit theological. I'll let you in on something that I'm not even about to try to explain to everybody, but since this is your section, I will. This gets a little theological. Gangadine is a Christian. There's no doubt about it at this point. But Gangadine belongs to a theological camp, I like to call it, a group, right? Different Christians think differently about certain things, right? You've probably figured that out at this point, being around Logos for a while. So especially when it comes to like what is it going to be in the end times, right? Is Jesus literally coming back, or is he literally going to reign for 1,000 years? All this kind of stuff, right? So Gangadine is of the belief that when Jesus reigns over the earth, it will be because we, mankind, have completed this mission of dominion, that we have completed dominion, and the majority of human beings will have come to the good. They'll have come to the knowledge of God, and that then will be like the reign of Jesus. I'm pretty sure this is correct. He doesn't believe that Jesus is literally going to come to earth and reign for 1,000 years. You've probably heard of this maybe in some of your other Bible classes. It's called the millennial rule of Jesus. And there are many Christians who believe that Jesus is literally going to come down to earth and rule for 1,000 years. These ideas come from the book of Revelation, the last book of the Bible, which you need to be very careful with. Handle that book with care. But Gangadine belongs to a group of Christians that would say Jesus is not going to literally rule for 1,000 years. What Revelation is talking about the time when dominion is complete. And you can actually see that at the bottom of your section 2.7 there. Notice that Gangadine says this. He says, there is no other revelation which allows one to bypass this. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading the wrong section here. Excuse me. Here it is. He says this. Yep. Hold on, buddy. Yep. Give me a second. He says this. The earth shall be full of the knowledge of God as the waters cover the sea. It is described as a city, the city of God, the completion of human culture under God. So Gangadine is actually quoting scripture there. He's quoting from the book of Revelation to say, hey, this is what Revelation means. Revelation, when it talks about the city of God and it talks about Jesus's 1,000-year reign, it's talking about dominion. It's talking about a time where dominion has been completed. So it is not up to you right now, or me even, to decide whether we believe Jesus's millennial rule is literal or figurative. But I just want to explain this so that you can understand where Gangadine's coming from a little bit better. But I do agree completely with Gangadine that we can have true hope that the good will be accomplished because it's reasonable that it will be accomplished. Our nature requires it. The nature of good requires dominion. In other words, we've got to get to know God through his creation. The nature of God is infinitely good, requires that good will overcome evil. And if we think about the past, we know that great progress has been made towards the good. And when we look at the present, although there are challenges remaining, we know that we can use reason to overcome those challenges and continue to work towards dominion. All right, hopefully that helps a little bit. I'll see you guys soon.